I was born with glaucoma. I did have some vision up until I was about maybe 6 or 7 years old, but it was a slow progression. I was unfortunately born in a decade where they didn't have the medical technology that exists today. The biggest thing to deal with was I wanted to do everything everyone else was doing. As a kid, I was a boy. People was riding bikes, people was skateboarding, rolling skates, doing things that we did in the neighborhood. I wanted to do it too. I wanted to participate. But gracious for me that I was surrounded with a family and some friends that will alter things that allow me to participate. Music has been a big part of my life. It's almost was somewhat forced upon me, and somewhat I embraced it as well.
A green tinted screen and braille lettering pops up that turns into the white Lighthouse of Houston logo. The Sightless Voices Unleashing Potential cover art pops up on screen. There's a flash, then clips of Jennifer's eye, her walking down the hall, and reading braille appear. A montage of clips from episodes of the podcast begins with Jennifer talking to our guests and smiling. It zooms in on the Sightless Voices Unleashing Potential cover art.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sightless Voices Unleashing Potential. As always, I am your hostie with the mostie, Jennifer Parrish. And y'all, today we have an extraordinary episode for you guys. Our guest today is George Batiste. George will be discussing his remarkable journey of overcoming vision loss, evacuating during Hurricane Katrina as a blind person, and finding solace and community through the Lighthouse Choir and his love of music. Before we get started, we're going to describe the set for our blind viewers. We are sitting in blue chairs with wooden tables next to us. We have a white brick background, blue lights, and a neon lighthouse sign. George, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Glad you made the trip up here. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your vision loss?
Okay. Well, my name is George, which you've already said.
Yeah.
I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I've lived in Kansas City, Missouri for 10 years, and then I ended up moving back to Louisiana back in 2003. And excuse me. And because of a big thing that happened, a major catastrophe the country got to suffer from, at least my area of the country, this is the reason why I live here in Houston. My vision, I was born with glaucoma. I did have some vision up until I was about maybe 6 or 6.5 or 7, somewhere around that line, years old, but it was a slow progression. I was unfortunately born in a decade where they didn't have the medical technology that exists today. So although I had a lot of surgeries, the surgery was basically just to relieve the pressure, because glaucoma, if I can allow to explain a little bit what that condition is.
Sure.
It allows, it's when a lot of pressure, liquid pressure builds up in your brain around the octave nerve. Well, and sometimes, supposedly, that fluid that's inside your head is supposed to be distributed throughout the rest of your body, or wherever it needs to go. Well, mine didn't, and which causes my octave nerve to be destroyed and damaged, and that's what caused me to lose my vision permanently. There is technology today where people can insert a shunt, which is like a little tube, that allowed that fluid to be distributed, because that's what happened with my son. My son, unfortunately, was born with glaucoma as well, or at least he inherited. And they was able to detect it when he was about 18 months old. And that's when they did that procedure. And it worked so good that we couldn't hide anything from him anymore.
Nice. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced during this transition?
I guess the biggest thing to dealt with was I wanted to do everything everyone else was doing. Like, as a kid, I was a boy. If people was riding bikes, if it was skateboarding, rolling skates, doing things that we did in the neighborhood, I wanted to do it too. I wanted to participate. And fortunately, since I didn't have the vision, I couldn't do everything. But gracious for me that I was surrounded with a family and some friends that will alter things that allow me to participate. And I say that because of the work that I do, I notice that a lot of families, since they are clueless, or if they have someone in their family who was born or don't have any vision, they're isolated because they just don't know what to do. They're ignorant to alternative techniques. But my family just naturally would figure out a way for me to be involved. So it was just, it was frustrating that I couldn't do it naturally, and then it was gracious that some people still allowed me to participate, even though, especially when it comes to running around. And of course, I lived in an area where it was like an apartment complex, and
Right.
sometimes I would do some running, but I would run into things
Yeah.
and really damage myself. Yeah, again, I was a boy, so I did have
Yes.
some scrapes and bruises and stuff like that because I wanted to do it. Everything else.
I can totally relate. I was the back teen queen as a kid. My mom always put that stuff on my scraped knees, and it burned like heck, man. So, so how did you find the strength and resources to adapt to your new reality?
Through a team, I guess a collaborative effort of everyone that I was around, whether if it was family, whether if it was school, or especially because when I first started going to school, I didn't go to the state school at first. I actually went to a public school, New Orleans, Louisiana, which is where I'm from. They were fortunate to be a big enough city that they had an alternative curriculum in the classroom to allow me to attend public school. And there was one teacher in one school. It was only in one school. The elementary school was one school where they would have Braille material. So I learned Braille when I first started school. I was one of those who had kindergarten, first grade in the same 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, because when I went to the school, I was placed in one class, and I apologize for getting off subject. I was placed in one class to where I was just sitting there because, I was glad I was able to go to school like my brothers and sisters, but they first didn't put me in the class where the Braille, those who were total were at. That was like a separate room.
Right.
Strange enough, it was next door because I used to hear it. I could hear the
Braille writers
The Braille writers. I
banging.
didn't know what they were.
Yes.
I used to go to the door stick and just listen. And I remember the teacher says, "Hey, don't do that. You're going to disturb Miss Dago's class." And then I guess after about maybe 2 or 3 weeks, they decided to put me in that class.
Yeah.
And that's when things kind of opened up.
Exactly.
That I learned Braille. I learned how to write on the Perkins. I learned how to read with books and even write on the slate and the stylus and all of that.
Yeah. Awesome. How about the adaptations that you were discussing before that your family kind of set up for you? What were some of those?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
And by having that, being exposed to Braille, that's when, because I'll never forget this one Christmas, that they actually did some research on different games that was both in Braille and print. So that means I was able to interact with everyone else. Like they found a Braille monopoly.
Yeah.
So in the neighborhood, they was excited that, hey, I could participate in a Monopoly game. What happened to somebody to tell me what my money was or what my property was? Because that's what I used to do. We played board games back then in the 70s.
Yep.
And, everybody was gathering, doing stuff, and I couldn't, or if I did, I had to have like a partner to read this stuff to me. Well, when we found all of these Braille games that was funded, I was able to read this stuff on my own. And it was in print, so no one had to worry about, how are we going to play with you as well. And especially when it came to cards. Cards was big in my family.
Yes.
And so when I was able to play cards with them too, that made it a lot of fun. So that was part of that I was able to, participate in fun activities. Even when it comes to outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
I was good at memorizing every way that I would travel. If I'm walking a certain place, no, I didn't count steps, but I remember every turn, every tree, whatever it was, the permanent landmarks.
That's how we had to do it.
Exactly. So that helped me. And so when it comes to like riding my bike, yes, I did ride a bicycle.
I did too.
I just remember the lay of the land.
Yep.
And if I wanted to go other places, then, I had a cousin who was 1 year under me. He would come over and we would ride together, or to be some friends that would love to take me, on this 20-inch bike, and we ride over the place, all over the city. So just that everybody was extremely supportive and wanted me to be able to interact with everything. And, the alterations that were made for me to participate in fun activities, that made me allowed to have a fun childhood.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we're going to switch gears here right now, and let's talk about Hurricane Katrina. So I've honestly been wanting to hear this story for a while. as a blind person, tell us about your experience evacuating during Hurricane Katrina as a blind person.
Okay. I was one of those weird individuals, growing up who wondered what would it be like to be in a hurricane. We lived in the city, we hear about them, we heard about what would go on in Florida, what would happen here, even in Texas,
Yep.
but not us. Because a lot of big storms would come to New Orleans, but they would either shift and we would never get it. And then when it come to Katrina, I will say in advance that although I used to say I wonder what it like, I don't want that anymore.
Nope.
Been there, done that. I don't need the T-shirt. Don't even want to order it.
Exactly.
Now, the thing that was challenging is because, yes, I was working at Walmart at the time, and of course, anytime a big storm is coming, we get all the reports and alerts, and then there's preparation. What are we going to do? And I remember there was a big storm the year before Katrina. Was called Ivan. That happened in 2004, and it was threatening Louisiana as well. And we did attempted to evacuate, and that was very tiresome. To give you how tiresome it was, when we did make the decision to attempt to evacuate, we was going to come here to Houston. As a matter of fact, I remember trying to arrange places to stay at. I was called. I had two phones. I had a cell phone and a landline phone. And I called one hotel. I had hotels on both ends because there was like a long wait time to get past the busy signals. And so I was able to set up rooms to be here. And when we left, we decided we was going to leave at midnight. Figured the roads would be empty because everybody was left during the day. Well, big mistake because everybody was leaving at midnight. And it took us 8.5 hours to go 80 miles.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we were just creeping. They did set up the contraband. Now,
Contraflow, right?
Contraflow.
Yeah.
That was the year before. So when Katrina came, at least 2005, dealing with that was like, man, we're not going anywhere. And, this is probably going to be another storm that's going to turn. Well, unfortunately, this one did not turn. We got up Sunday morning, it says it's coming. And since it was too late for us to evacuate out because we didn't make the evacuating plans as to where we're going to stay, where we're going to go, we had to figure out what we was going to do to shelter in place, sort of, or go to a particular shelter. Since my brother was working security for this company called USF&G, they do security of the Superdome. Whatever events would come there, he will be on duty to patrol that. And so he told us that was going to have special places set up for families of those who were employees. So that means, if anybody know about or remember the news stories, what was happening with Katrina and the tragedy and the devastating things that was happening on the floor of the Superdome, we didn't get to experience that. We could hear it,
Right.
but we was up in like the luxury box suites away from everything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that, the first day we got in there was a Sunday evening. We checked in, we took all them, all our electronics and stuff at home and put them up, and we took like a couple of days worth of clothes. We didn't expect that we would never go back into this house. So I think I took like 3 days. And of course, when the storm had come, that's when I remember the power going out in the Superdome like about 6:30 in the morning. I heard the winds coming at like about 4 because I was, stuff happening. My adrenaline was flowing. I couldn't go to sleep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what did it sound like when that whole thing's blowing through and people freaking out, or like, how was it?
Because I was listening to Channel 4, which is what I had one of those TV radios,
Right.
And I could hear them giving reports, and then I finally could hear the wind blowing like at outside, kind of like in the distance.
Yeah.
And I'll say, okay, I think we're hearing the wind. I think it's approaching. Now, when it got to be like about an hour later, it was like 5:36 in the morning, I could really hear it. I mean, you could hear stuff just blowing hard and things just whipping around
Inside
outside.
the Superdome, dang.
Yeah. And so finally, the power went out at about 6:30. It was just big, like when you're in a big area and people lose lights or lose vision. Or not lose vision, lose lights.
Yeah.
It's like an alarm.
Yes.
Big oohs and ahs from the crowd.
Yeah.
So the AC went out.
Oh, no.
But the lights, they had emergency lights that did kick on. So people could still see, but they just wasn't no power.
It
Now,
was hot.
As time went by, conditions got worse. Now, that first day, it was okay. It was just kind of alarming to hear things getting whipped around outside. Like you could just hear like poles and things just crashing into stuff and
Things
the
that
wind-
shouldn't be hitting.
Yeah, it was just it was like wow. Like it's a good thing I was not out there because there's no way, this was like what, probably 120, 130 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
And you hear things and as a blind person like, what was that?
Exactly.
But there's no way I can know what was that. And I guess it might have been like towers, electronic towers falling down, flagpoles just whipping around. Because we did lose cellular service probably in the afternoon. I was at a point to where on my cell phone, I could receive calls if I'm outside, but I couldn't make a call. Like inside the dome, my phone didn't work at all. But when the winds finally calmed down enough that folks were allowed to go outside, this was like probably 7 o'clock in the evening, where we get like some fresh air. Because, just been stuck inside, you don't have the AC running. So the only air that was, I guess, circulating was those of us who was just breathing
Right.
in and out. So it was good to get fresh air to go outside.
Yeah.
And that's when I noticed I could not make a call, but I could receive a call. And so I think I set up on my voicemail on my cell phone, let everybody know what was going on, that I'm okay, I'm safe. We evacuated. We sheltered in place in the Superdome. And if you guys want to call me, I gave a time I was going to be outside. And so there was a few people. Then you had to juggle which call you're going to answer.
Oh, God, I know, right?
Because everybody was like, okay, we want to know. We're glad to hear your voice. And I did that for like all that week because I was in that Superdome for about 5 days. And then that's when conditions got worse as time went by. Because by the time Tuesday come about, which would be like the second or third day, of course, there's no more water pressure. So plumbing was, atrocious. Just use your imagination.
I'm sure
it was like,
did not smell good
it
in
did
there.
not smell good at all in there. And it was getting worse and worse and worse. And then there was no electricity. And I think the only power they had was they brought some generator around when the water kind of succeeded a little bit in like the offices up front somewhere to where, since my brother, since he's patrolling, this is where we can go and charge our cell phones and while he was on patrol or whatever. But yeah, conditions got extremely bad. And I'll tell you a little short story. It was so bad. There was one lady, there was a couple, a married couple was there. I think she was 8.5 months pregnant. And
Oh, no.
she had to relieve herself in a trash can.
Wow.
And so he had to stand guard to make sure nobody comes in that area because he said, look, my wife is pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant. Y'all just have to wait, but nobody can come in this area.
Right.
And hopefully, and everybody, will listen to respectful. So why try nobody? It just was that bad that, she had to do her thing in the trash can.
In the trash can.
Because,
Yeah.
the work employment wasn't good.
Yep. Wow.
Getting out of there was also alarming because we now hearing stories about people looting in the city and just destroying stuff and angry that they're not being rescued quick enough. And so when they came up with how we was going to evacuate, this is like I'm on the 4th day now.
Yeah.
And of course it's now hot in the Superdome.
Oh, my
you
gosh.
Know, they're just sweating. And of course now we dirty because I done ran out of clean clothes to change into. So I really did feel like a homeless person. When we was going to evacuate, they had us to meet up like in a lobby area. The Superdome was connected to like a food court, connected to also the Hyatt Regency Hotel. So we was going to meet up through that area like at 2 o'clock in the morning because hopefully we didn't cause alarm to anybody. And so now I'm nervous because we know people's looting. I'm hoping nobody don't try to break the glass or try to like be a part of this,
Hurt
how
you
we're going to
guys.
evacuate.
Right.
So, so we was going to meet the buses at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And when 6 o'clock in the morning had come, we were standing outside in the lobby of the Hyatt Regency, and we was lining up, and bus was going to pull it. The buses didn't come for like about 3 hours though, but we all just lining up and waiting. So all of a sudden, and like about maybe an hour later, we hear somebody banging on the door because like everything was boarded up. So we don't know who's banging on the door. We don't know if that's some people outside coming to, just cause harm. But actually, it was the military who was getting in, and they was, because the military had arrived. And that was just like a frightening moment because they breaking the door in, and they had security was there too. My brother was on the scene too. And everybody was like, when they got the door, everybody was moving. Nobody knew what was going on, what was happening. So I was kind of like going into protective mode.
Follow the wave.
I remember standing in front of my mother, make sure it happened to her. And that's when somebody yelled out, "Relax, everybody. It's the military." So I was scared. Put your guns in holsters. Stand down. So that was alarming. And so then when we got on the buses to leave, and I'm hearing about what's going on around the city, I didn't feel relief until we got out of the city, because we on these buses, everyone know what's going on. I'm worried about anybody going to be shooting at the bus or trying to break the glass. I try to get on these buses that were set aside for us. So I didn't relax until we got like about 30 miles outside of the city. But that amongst other stuff that I had to go through preparing for that or making a plan, that was the one scariest moment I could think of. And just dealing with the heat inside the dome because the AC was off, and the smells because there wasn't more plumbing. And so this means you got stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that was like
Not
definitely like a
pleasant.
third world country or worse.
Right. Wow. So what lessons do you think you learned out of this experience, and what would you like to share with others about those lessons?
Oh, absolutely. One, when you hear, especially living in this area of Houston, we hear it when hurricane season come around, they tell you have a plan, have an evacuation plan, put things in place. Take heed of that. Yeah. Definitely have a plan in place, even if you may not ever get to use it. If you think you're going to need to evacuate, if you're in an area that's probably may get destroyed or whatever, have that plan in place as to where you're going to go. Like me, I know I'm going north or somewhere away from here. I'm not curious of what it's like to be in a major storm anymore. I know what it's like.
Right.
Make sure you have, of course, perishable food, non-perishable. I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
Yeah.
Stuff that would not go bad.
Exactly.
Have snacks, whatever, something that to last.
Granola bars, things like that.
Granola bars, crackers.
Yep.
Vienna sausage for kids or whatever if you have those. Fruits, definitely. Have that. Gather those things and don't wait until maybe like the day before when the storm is coming. If they're forecasting something to come, kind of like have that stuff put aside already so you don't have to fight the crowds in grocery stores.
Right. Just like the news tells us, get your kit together.
Exactly. Nowadays, it's good to have batteries too, but make sure if you got like portable phone chargers, get those. Make sure all of those are fully charged. Have multiple ones. Don't have just one.
Yeah.
Have multiple chargers in case you may have to, as long as you can have the ability to utilize your device that you're using these days.
Exactly.
Have maybe a clothes packed for about, I would say do about a week. Don't do like I did like 3 days because, it's good to have 3 days. I didn't expect never to go back into the house, but so now I'll do like about 5 days. Have cash.
Yes.
Have cash
Big.
because if electronics goes out, you can't even use an ATM. So
Precisely.
that's always good to have. And have all of your important documents, especially in the kind of medical papers you need. Have your insurance papers if you need them, and all of your medications. Make sure that your fills are refilled. Don't have a supply of maybe 3 days left. Make sure that thing is well stocked.
Right. What would you tell blind folks out there that, they're in the future that may come across a natural disaster, how they could prepare?
Yeah, do research. Learn how to, if you're not accustomed to making traveling plans, meet with a travel agent that can help you with that, or somebody who does know how to do that, or do it yourself. Find different hotel rates, check in advance, book in advance, and get familiar with the websites. A lot of them are fully accessible for the devices, whether if you're using screen readers, screen magnification software, or your smartphones. Most of them are fully accessible right now, and if they're not, have someone that can help make those arrangements for you as well.
That's excellent advice because, yes, like you need to know how to use a website on your phone as well. Like not on a desktop. You need to learn how to use it on your cell phone because you won't have access probably to a computer, if the power is out or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this learn all the accessible features or applications of your phone as well. There are a lot of accessible applications that are out there that are free. So, they got definitely resources in town that you can connect with or somebody who knows. Don't be too prideful. That's like, you don't want to ask for help. Be open to asking for assistance. Even me, as independent as I am, I'm always open for knowledge to learn stuff. So even though I know how to do a lot of things independently, I do not mind sharing what I know to people so they can also be just as independent as I am. And here's the reason why I stress knowing this stuff yourself, because that person who you are relying upon to assist you with stuff may not always be available. It may not always be there. So that way it will not be a traumatic experience because the person who you're relying to, whether if it's your own children or a family member or a colleague, whoever it is, if they're not available, you can still do it.
Yes, exactly. All very good information. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit lighter stuff now. Let's talk about music. So how did you get involved with the Lighthouse Choir, and what role has music played in your life?
Music has been a big part of my life. Well, it's almost was somewhat forced upon me, and somewhat I embraced it as well. Because as you know, everybody, because of these musicians who are famous, the Stevie Wonders, the Ray Charles, they think every blind person knows music or should be able to learn music.
That's so funny.
That's the way of success. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you're gonna be the next Stevie Wonder, next Ray Charles, or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, fine. And so I embraced it, I guess, as a kid. I love music.
Yeah.
My biggest toy that I received one Christmas was a tape recorder. Yes, a cassette recorder.
No, that's real. That's for real. I had one too, and I loved it. Loved it.
Because my siblings, they were much older than me. Like I got one sister that was 4, another one was 5 years older, and my brother was 8 years older.
Yeah.
And so, although they interact with me from time to time, but for most of the part, I did a lot of on my own.
Yeah.
And that tape recorder was like my best friend. I made up own stories. I used to record stuff. I used to record music. You should record me, just because that's my playmate.
Fun.
It was fun.
Exactly. I used to record myself singing to the radio. I would always do that. Like, I totally feel you on that, man. Like, that tape recorder was, like, it was awesome, man, when we got that thing.
So, by me just liking music as well, and everybody said, okay, then they forced him to Stevie Wonder. And matter of fact, when I got to hear his music, which his music is not bad. I mean, I loved a lot of his music.
Yeah.
I still play some of it today on my playlist. He was very talented.
Yeah.
And what was great about him, he didn't just write about music that deal with his blindness. He wrote about maybe love stories or whatever, just real stuff. And so that's why I think his music was accepted as well. And then of course they were impressed because not only was he could sing, he also can play several different instruments. So I felt, okay, I want to do that. Now, I was going to a public school where it was kind of a challenge as to how I was going to learn music. And so for my first 3 years of public school, of course, there was no way. I think one time they tried to find somebody who could teach me, but he didn't know how he would do it. He was intimidated about how I'm going to teach this blind guy how to play. I don't know. So this is the first time I got exposed about one of the state schools in Louisiana. And when I was able to go to the state school in 4th grade, this is when I got exposed to learning how to play an instrument, play piano, and also read Braille music. Because those teachers, one dark part is, and during the mid-'70s, the state schools in Louisiana was desegregated. Yes, there was a black school, there was a white campus.
Wow.
And of course, I went to the black campus for 1 year, and this is how I got introduced to. I wanted to play drums, and I was on the drum set for like 2 weeks, and then some kind of way the band director, I guess, saw trumpet in his vision. So When I was going to the back, he says, "No, coming up here, Batiste, sit up front." And he put this heavy trumpet in my lap. And so I had to hold that thing up. I'm 9 years old. This thing is heavy. But I was able to learn it, and they stress reading Braille music. Even the piano teachers that I had stress reading Braille music.
That's awesome.
So when I went back to public school, I decided to go back in New Orleans for my 5th and 6th grade. Again, I got away from the music because there was no way of teaching it. So when I finished 6th grade, which is finished elementary school, I was glad my mother agreed with me that I wanted to go back because I did miss it. I missed being able to play, being able to learn, being able to excel at it. I did okay, but I wanted to move further. So because I was really interested in music, that allowed me to, go back. By this time, when I got to 7th grade, the schools were integrated together. They were segregated together. They was on one big campus, which was cool. That was an adventure. It was nice. It was inviting. And so that's how I got to be exposed more into music, be not only playing the piano, excel more in the trumpet, I also was in the choir.
Yeah.
Well, I always was in a church choir. I think I got in the church choir when I was like 9 years old. No, maybe 8 years old. And so I was always in a choir all my life. Loved singing. Henceforth, how I guess it came about when I moved to Houston, and when I first heard about the Lighthouse. I didn't hear about the Lighthouse Choir until, let me see, I moved here in 2005, probably not till like 2015 or no, maybe 2017.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the year I joined as well, and they had only started it off a couple of years before that.
I found out about it, but I wasn't invited. I didn't know when to meet. I think we had something going on with work at the last, and I saw these, a piano, and I think I was banging on it, and then so it was. I think I can credit this to Diana Harada and maybe, oh crap, I can't think of her name. She's no longer here. Pearl, I think.
Pearl.
It was. Yeah.
Pearl Hung.
Yeah. Because she just came out on the blues. She was one of my clients one time. And she
Nice.
says, "Do you sing?" I like, well, I have mic for I don't sing in front of people. She said, "Well, you ought to come join the choir. Just come in." And then I think one time me and Diana used to ride Metro a lot going to work, and she mentioned it to me. I said, "Okay, I'm going to come." And she told me when they meet. And so how I happened to just show up, and I think Dr. Dan didn't even ask me if I want to join. He just says, "Oh, here, we got a seat right over here for
Come
you."
on over
He's
here.
an approach. So I was stuck. And like the Lighthouse Choir, as wonderful as it is, it's a family.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, once you get it, you pretty much cannot get out
You're
of it.
not getting out. It's like
They
the
don't-
mob.
They don't let you.
The
In a
blind
fun
mob.
way. No, it's not a cult. It's a
No,
very fun.
It's so fun. There's such a sense of community in the choir, and I mean, we've built something so cool. I agree with you. We've never been able, I've never seen an entire visually impaired choir. Ever, and it's so cool, and just everybody supports everyone else through all of our trials and tribulations and stuff like that. And so,
Yeah, it's very supportive. Everybody care. We got a big text group, and you share your information. So
Yes.
it's a fun quest. So that's how I found out about it. I was told about it. I decided to try to sneak in and show up and was going to observe, but no, here, come sit down. Glad to have a guy in here.
I know. It's so true. Hey, everyone, we do need more male singers.
Yes,
so
we do.
Come on, guys. We need y'all to audition, please. All right. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us today. And as we wrap up today's conversation, do you have any final advice for individuals who are facing similar challenges or natural disasters?
For challenges, when it comes to your vision or even natural disasters, as indicated, network, embrace, learn stuff on your own. Try to be as independent as you possibly can. Not saying, and I know everybody cannot probably do it as much, but just learn as much as you can. Always have an evacuation plan, have a preparation, have an evacuation kit put together of your meds, have some cash, have non-perishable foods and some clothing, and make sure all of your portable chargers, get one if you don't have one, and keep them fully charged. Get multiple ones.
Excellent advice. Okay. Well, to our listeners, we thank you so much for being part of our community and tuning in to Sightless Voices, Unleashing Potential, brought to you proudly by the Lighthouse of Houston. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with George Batiste and found it as inspiring as and as insightful as we did. Remember, overcoming challenges and finding strength in community can lead to incredible resilience and growth. Stay tuned for more episodes where we will continue to explore stories that matter. Be sure to tune into our other episodes. Follow the Lighthouse of Houston on social media for updates. And until next time, take care and stay empowered.